G'day everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a walk around of my 1995 Toyota Supra. We're going to be talking about some of the things that I've done to this car, some of the things I'd like to do, and some of the problems I'm currently experiencing. It's just a quick walkthrough, so without further ado, let's get started. First, let's talk about the bodywork, because what I've done is quite extensive to the vehicle since I got it. When I got it, it didn't have any side skirts, so I've got some veil side ones on here, which matches up quite nicely with the trial rear bumper, as you can see either side of the tyre there. So, pretty happy with that. I added the TRD wing, obviously with the carbon blade, carbon end caps. The rear bumper is a trial rear bumper. I've had it completely restored as it did have parking sensors in it, so now that's all back to normal specification, looking pretty sweet. Cannon exhaust by Supercar, we'll cover that a bit more when we talk about the performance. And as for wheels, we've got Rotor Grid R's, 10 inch in the back, 9.5 in the front. Moving along to the front, we've got a Redox front bumper and a TRD copy carbon fibre bonnet, which, to be honest, has its issues, and I'll cover that in the issues section of the video. Moving on to the inside, I've done quite a bit in here. The dash pieces when I originally got the vehicle were silver, so I painted those back to factory black. The shifter and handbrake boot I had replaced as they were getting a bit ratty. Obviously done a head unit conversion there. And I've added some performance meters here, one for my boost pressure and one for the exhaust temperature. Now, these two switches down here, the first one is for my meters, that turns them on. They can also change color, whatever you want, pretty standard aftermarket meter affair. The second one here actually turns on footwell lights. Yeah, I know it's a little bit Fast and the Furious spec, but hey, I like it and that's what matters. And most importantly, I've done a full LED conversion with the HVAC unit and the gauge cluster. So I've got the full like white and red theme going on between everything. And yeah, it's pretty nice. The indicator lights all light up white here, white in the gauge cluster here, red on the meters there, and obviously red in my footwells. Now, one other thing that I added that I definitely want to mention is I've added a reversing camera, except it's on the front of the vehicle. Now, if you've spent any time in any Supras, you'll understand why this is absolutely necessary. Because from where you're sitting, you can't actually see the front of the car. And if I step out of the vehicle, I'll actually just show you. Look how much car is in front of where you are sitting, right? And then most importantly, because the front of this vehicle is very low, stock suspension, but the aftermarket bodywork makes it quite low, you're gonna hit those concrete bollards that they have in shopping centers and stuff. So if you go too far forward, you're literally just going to crash into those concrete bollards. Now, as for the camera, you wouldn't even know it's there. It's tucked up right up in there, and you wouldn't even know. So yeah, definitely a worthy upgrade. Bit of a pain in the bottom to do, but yeah, definitely worth doing. As far as the rest of the interior is concerned, pretty standard affair. Obviously we've got with some aftermarket speakers. They're actually Alpine S's, not Sony's. I just had to use the grills, funny story. Standard finish on the seats, both front and rear. Yep, that's right, they didn't match from the factory. Not sure why Toyota did it that way, but anyway. And I've got a subwoofer under the front seat. Besides that, that's about it for the interior. Pretty standard affair. I've just kept it pretty OEM plus. Now for the part everyone gets excited about, under the bonnet. As you can see under here, it's not quite your traditional 2JZ turbo affair. This car started out life as a naturally aspirated 2JZ GE, but I had since done a full turbo conversion with a kit from XS Power and a whole bunch of other goodies. I've got 1000cc injectors, I've got the big front mount intercooler, I've got the Mishimoto Rad, I've got a 560 LPH Walbro fuel pump, and a Link ECU controls the whole show. The only other real thing to mention is I've got an HKS super sequential blow-off valve hidden here in the bumper, straight to atmosphere. It's loud, it's obnoxious, I absolutely love it, but one day I'll probably have to plumb it back in. So yeah, that's about it. It's a really laggy turbo, it's a journal bearing turbo, it's a cheap turbo. Yeah, there's not much to say about it, we'll talk about that in the driving. But yeah, done that, done a bit of a catch can, and yeah, that's about it. You know, injectors, turbo, catch can, and oh, and turbo smart fuel pressure regulator. That was a necessary item as well. So I've spent money in places where it counts, like on the ECU and on the fueling system and stuff like that, but the turbo is pretty cheap and will probably need to be upgraded in the near future. One thing I briefly forgot to mention was the exhaust setup on this vehicle. Currently we've got a 3-inch dump straight off the back of the turbo, but from then on it's as I had it when it was normally aspirated. So 2.5 inches front to back with a resonator about the length of my arm in the middle to prevent any drone. It's not loud. It is once you're on screamer pipe and your blow off valve, but when you're just driving around it's actually really nice. I really love the sound, but it does choke the power in the top end. My tuner reckons probably about 10 to 15 kilowatts if I do a 3-inch system front to back, but for the time being it's still rocking mostly a naturally aspirated exhaust setup. As for that exhaust note, I did film a couple of clips with my microphone the other day, so take a listen. And for those of you that are curious, nothing particularly exciting here in the back, other than mine is a factory subwoofer car, which is pretty neato. And I also got this custom carpet made up from a local manufacturer, which is pretty cool. Nice high quality carpet. When I got this car, it used to have a subwoofer in it, and it had this really heavy wooden panel with some cheap carpet on it. Looked rubbish, weighed a ton, so yeah. Other than that, pretty standard affair back here. Now let's talk about the problems, because it's a project car and of course there is problems. To begin, once I turboed this car, everything was working relatively fine. Until I started realizing that if I had the aircon on, especially on any higher than the first fan setting, occasionally you pop your foot down on the clutch, say when you're pulling up to a give way, a stop sign or whatever, the RPMs would drop, obviously from the clutch, and then they'd sort of dip below 1 and the car would go to stall for a second. And occasionally it would actually stall. A little bit dangerous because obviously you lose powered brakes, power steering, and if it's a roundabout or something and you have to get going, well, you can't. So every time I had to put the clutch in to come to a stop, I was always like ready with the key to have to restart the vehicle. Now that's no longer a problem because actually I don't have working aircon anymore. I blew an aircon line, lost all the gas, and currently don't have aircon. So that's not really a problem except for the, you know, not having aircon part of the problem. The other thing in here that's a problem is for whatever reason, the steering column has a little bit of movement in it. And it's really annoying because every time you accelerate, it goes down, and every time you brake, it goes up. Just an annoying little thing. Gonna have to pull it apart and have a little look at it. Not sure what's going on there. But other than that, inside, yeah, not too bad. Moving on to the outside, we have many problems to discuss. Now, from this distance here, the car looks brilliant. And, you know, it's a great car when you're standing, you know, 5 meters away. But as you get a little bit closer, you realize, oh, there's quite a lot of scratches on this 30-year-old paintwork. Oh, there's paint just missing there. That's someone's not done a great job rolling the guards there. Oh, what's happened here? Oh, has the door collided with the bodywork? Oh, the body kit doesn't fit too good, does it? Oh, look at the gaps on this bonnet. Wow, you can fit literally entire fingers either side of that. Oh, what's going on? Why is it going all milky here? Oh, the heat's made it go all milky. Oh, that's no good at all. Just general 30-year-old car, wear and tear. We're starting to get fade. Look at this. We're just starting to fade on the top of the doors. A little bit on the hatch here too. You know, it's 30-year-old paintwork. The body work here, look at the gap on that. You know, it's just, yeah. Overall, the entire bodywork needs to be completely stripped off, the whole car repainted and everything molded to the car correctly. But of course, I don't have that kind of money. At the moment, it presents really well. I'm happy with it as is, but it is far from perfect on the outside of this vehicle. Under here, while it is fully functional, it's incredibly ugly. That's something that's definitely not great. And it's not usually great to have your intake pipe right above the hot side of your turbo. That's generally regarded as not a great idea. So yeah, I would call that a problem as well. As well as the distributor actually fouling with this intake pipe here, I'm definitely going to have to do something about that because that is going to cause some issues later down the line for sure. So while we're under here, perhaps now is the best time to talk about what are some of the things I want to do in the future with this car. I mean, I've had it all these years, I've done all these things to it, but naturally there's a lot more we want to do. And honestly, most of what I want to do is right under here, what we're looking at. I've seen pictures on Instagram and whatnot of NAT conversions like mine, and I'll include one here in the video, where they've done the turbo cam covers and a front-facing intake and a distributor delete, and it looks oh so much better. That's what I'd like to do under here. At some stage, I'd definitely like to replace this old laggy turbo. Well, it's not old, but it's just old technology laggy turbo with something a little bit more efficient, a bit more responsive that would just transform this vehicle. Obviously a coil on plug conversion and a distributor delete is a must-have. And if I want to add any more power, I have to upgrade the transmission because this is still rocking the W58 5-speed transmission that come with all naturally aspirated manual Supras, which can only handle about 300, 350 kilowatts of power depending on your tune and how aggressive you drive it. So pretty well, performance-wise, yeah, we've got a fair bit left we want to do. But hey, as it sits right now, awful lot of fun, great looking thing, just don't pop the bonnet, it's not very good looking under here. Moving to the outside, I briefly touched on it, but this bonnet, it doesn't fit properly, the lacquer's gone all milky, and it went all milky not that long after I got it, truth be told, so it's not very high quality, so that I would like to replace. The entire bodywork just needs to be redone in this car. Would love to do it, but man, you're talking thousands and thousands for that. And I definitely want to get some coilover suspension just to stiffen it up a bit, and I'll briefly mention that probably during the driving segment as well. Other than that though, I'm actually really happy with the car on its looks on the outside. It just needs things, you know, tidy up the bonnet a bit, fix the bodywork a bit, but for the most part, this is the look I am chasing on this vehicle. On the inside, honestly, closest to perfect for me as the rest of this car. Would like to retrim the seats, probably front and back. I'd like to get some new floor mates made up because these are pretty knackered. But other than that, you know, I'm happy with the stereo, I'm happy with the meters, I'm happy with everything else. The interior is pretty much done. So yeah, just a couple things to finish up in here. So now I've gone over the entire car, everything about it. Let's take it for a drive and I'll give you a couple of my quick thoughts on the driving experience. Well, listen to that, eh? The 2JZ engine, an engine famous for putting smiles on tens of thousands of faces around the world. And with good reason. What a powertrain, honestly. That's like the story of the Toyota Supra, really, when you think about it. The styling is one thing, but the engine is the other half of the story. Now, before I get too far into this, I'll try and keep this brief. There's going to be a bunch of people in the comments, some that know more than me, many that perhaps don't, that'll complain about the turbo setup on this car and oh, it's so horrible and blah blah blah. So let me just clear something up really quickly. I turbocharged this car as a full-time student. I put every penny I had, I worked tireless overtime hours to get this car where it is today turbo-wise, right? If I could have done better, I would have done better. The fact that I even have this is just like lucky. I feel so grateful for what I have today in this vehicle. Now, with that said, I do not think this is actually a bad setup. If the year was 1995 and you did a single turbo, I mean, even conversion or like on a twin turbo or an NAT like this car, this is the experience you probably would have got. Turbos back in those days were very laggy. This is a very authentic turbo build, so to speak. Doesn't mean it's good, but I can tell you it is an awful lot of fun. So, yeah, look, it is what it is. Is it ideal? No, but it sure is an awful lot of fun. It makes the noises and it makes more than enough power for road use. I'll just make a left turn up here, leave it in second gear, and I'll show you what I mean by lag. So, pulling up here, nice and slow, second gear around this corner. So we're currently at 2,000 RPM. I'm nailing it. It's to the floor. Nothing, 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 nothing. Here we come. So, yeah, it's super laggy. You get nothing below 4. It starts building boost from 4,000 RPM. You're on song at about 4,500 to 4,700 RPM, and you're on wastegate. Depending on what gear you're in and loading it up, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, lots of factors there. But the point is, you're getting nothing below 4. So, you know, is it usable? Well, not really. I mean, without the turbo, you've got a 3-litre inline 6. So if you're flogging it in second gear, and you get up to 4, most of the time you're at the speed limit, to be perfectly honest with you. So again, round this corner here, second gear, 2000 RPM, I'm nailing it, nothing, 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 we're coming on and we're online at 4700 in second. So, and just like that, you are well and truly at the speed limit or beyond, right? So, couple things about that. It's an awful lot of fun. You get that anticipation, you hear the turbo start, and then you're just into hyperspace, right? And the torque just hits you like a sack of shit, and you're off, you're out of here, right? But of course, if you want to hear the turbo and you want to hear the blow-off, as you do in your 2JZ sports car, you need to kind of really break the rules to do it, to be quite frank. Which, you know, yeah. So, yeah, you know, I mean, I spent 6 months driving a Suzuki Cappuccino. That thing had a tiny turbo. I was revving that turbo up all the time for the noise, and it was great. This car, you gotta sort of check your surroundings before you do anything of that, if you know what I mean. So, turbo aside, what about the rest of the car? Well, the rest of the car, honestly, it's 90s Japanese car. You know, I mean, I've got an aftermarket clutch in here, so obviously that's a bit heavier, but the engagement is comparable to the stock one, to be honest with you. The brakes are 90s brakes, which is to say, not terrible pre-90s brakes, but definitely not what we'd call good brakes by modern standards. And the steering, well, it's responsive, as you can see here. I mean, you know, I'm moving it, but I mean, I've spent 6 months driving a Cappuccino, I've driven MX-5, Roadsters, Miata, whatever you call it in your market, and the steering is better. This, at the end of the day, is and was always a GT car, not a purpose-built sports car. You want purpose-built, you go RX-7 or something like that, right? This is a little bit more straight line speed, big windy corners sort of car, you know, none of that real purpose stuff. Now, of course, you can add things to this to make it more like that, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be moving 1.5 tons of car. Anyway, we're just pulling onto my favourite bit of road here. We'll just let it rip a bit. So here we go, and we're on into second, nailing second, into third, and yeah, we're moving. We are moving. So, yeah, awful lot of fun when you get a nice open country bit of road like this, but in most cases, you're not going to be able to use it, truth be told. So, yeah, look, to summarise, when it's off turbo, I mean, you know, when you're not on Screamer, when you're not on the blow-off valve, because of the quiet exhaust and because of the easy driving experience, it's like a relatively normal car, besides obviously the way it looks. I mean, it looks insane, obviously, compared to normal cars. But, you know, if I just pull around here, second gear, come around here, and then I just, you know, accelerate a bit, up to 3, shift, into third, shift to 3 again, you're at the speed limit, you're cruising, no one even hears us coming. You can go around people's suburbs, no one even knows you're there, a little bit of exhaust noise, but no more than what any car with any sort of catback exhaust or something would have on it. So, to summarise, the Toyota Supra, great driving, it's an absolute, I mean, it's a darling to drive, it's so easy to drive, everything just works. Like, I've let so many people drive this car and they're so intimidated by the way it looks, and then as soon as they get behind the wheel, they're like, oh, this is just like fine, this is not unreasonable at all. So, the summary of the day is, it's a GT car, this one's got a stonking big turbo on it, so it's ridiculous, but look, everything, you know, I mean, everything below 0 PSI, and 0 PSI itself, is just casual stuff. If you're looking for a hills weapon, something to really tear up the windies, I'd probably recommend something a bit smaller, a bit lighter, a bit responsive in the steering. Yeah, you can make this good, but it's never gonna be as good as an MX-5. It just isn't. Like, that's just the reality of it. If you do want a cruiser, you want something you could drive, in my example, from Adelaide to Melbourne in, get on the highways on, do some windy country roads, you know, those big open benders and that, then this car is literally purpose-built for that. And on top of that, you've got plenty of leg room, you've got plenty of space, you've got a decent amount of cargo area. You know, you can take this thing on a weekend away and you'll have a great time. And when you run into some good roads, you'll have an even better time. So yeah, Toyota Supra, great driving car, nothing ridiculous, except for the huge turbo that these often have. Anyway, that's everything you need to know about my 1995 Toyota Supra. I'm sure you've all seen Supra walk-around videos before, but I feel mine's a little bit different, as a lot of the modifications are a lot more budget orientated, since I am a student studying full-time, so I just bought the parts as I went along and installed most of them by myself or with some help from friends. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough, big plans for the future of the car, and yeah, that's my Toyota Supra. If you did enjoy the video, please feel free to chuck us a like, really helps small channels like mine grow. And if you want to see more car content, subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more lined up and I've got plenty more different cars to film. And yeah, I'm really excited about the future. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.